So let's talk about how to cut PVC pipe. We're going to need to cut this to the proper length in order to install it on an irrigation system and have it fit inside the trench and be able to have the different fittings connect. And being able to accurately cut the pipe is an important skill. There are several tools you can use. The primary tool that people use is a ratcheting pipe cutter. So this is a blade with an anvil, and you can see it has ratcheting components. So as you squeeze, this snaps down. And this gives you a lot of strength and the ability to cut through the pipe with a lot of accuracy. The pipe can rest right inside here, so you get a relatively straight up and down cut, which is important. And if you're going to use these, you just want to make sure that as you're going through the pipe, you rotate up and down a little bit. Because if you were to just only cut through without that rotation on thinner wall pipe, there is a chance that you could do some crushing action instead of cutting through. So as you're ratcheting down, right when you start to cut through the pipe, you rotate a little bit, and then you can keep finishing your cut, and it will go all the way through and be nice and clean. These are a little bit expensive, and so I have not sent you home with a pair. Instead, I have given you the humble hacksaw. Now this is a lot smaller and more narrow than your traditional hacksaw that you would use for carpentry or construction, but it uses the same blade, very fine teeth that is meant for cutting metal, and in this case it'll cut through plastic. You want to recognize that the cutting happens on the push stroke and not on the pull stroke. And of course you want to be cautious. This is sharp, so you don't want to cut your hands or anything like that. But because it has such small teeth, you don't have to worry about hurting yourself just by handling the saw. It's when you're putting any pressure that you have a chance for some injury. Now this is the more difficult way to cut through the pipe. It takes a little bit longer and it takes a little bit more finesse and practice. But in a beginning irrigation installation class, it's good to get some experience with the hacksaw. Now this is not your standard tool. A typical hacksaw for construction would be larger with a bigger handle and a larger frame. But this is what we use for irrigation installation because it allows you to get down into a narrow trench. And so it has a very slim profile to facilitate working with pipes. When you work with a hacksaw, it's important to not push too hard because this is flimsy. So if you put too much force, you have a chance to bend or even break the blade. So you go slow and you let the tool do the job. Also, you want to put an effort into making sure you keep the blade up and down. As you're cutting, if you start twisting your wrist, you may do a cut that's not 90 degrees. So this tool requires a little bit of extra skill and time, and to be honest, it's not as pleasant to use as this tool here, but it's good experience to get, because if you can use this effectively, you'll have some extra abilities in your toolkit. You'll have the ability to make some cuts in a sensitive area. Now, after you do the cut, especially with the hacksaw, you will see the pipe has lots of little plastic burrs. So you want to clean these off before installing or solvent welding this to any other fitting or pipe. And you can use your hand, although these are a bit rough, so you don't want to scratch yourself or scrape yourself. There are special tools called deburring tools that go right inside. But you can also just use anything that's a hard material. And you can even use another piece of PVC. If you carefully come along, you can just kind of rub the edge. A lot of times people will end up using like the handle of the tool they use to cut, or even like a screwdriver of some sort. You can get in there and just get that pipe to be cleaned up a little bit. Even a pocket knife could work, but in this case you don't want to hurt yourself, and you don't want to damage the pipe more than you need to. So any kind of firm, smooth tool can help you to deburr this pipe. And then once you get all the big pieces off, take a little rag and wipe that off. And it will be ready then for solvent weld or glue. You have enough pipe in your kit to go ahead and attempt several cuts first. So before you measure things out and cut for installation, practice a little bit. And you can cut several small pieces off at once. And when you do this, you'll be able to test yourself and to see how effective you were at cutting straight up and down, or did you have a little slanted angle on your cut. Another thing you may want to do is lay down a cardboard or a piece of paper, and that way you'll be able to collect some of these plastic shavings as they fall, because we always want to clean up after ourselves, and it's just easier if you plan ahead of time so that all of your mess happens on top of the paper. So do this 3 or 4 times as a practice. Cut some pieces off the edge of your pipe, and then you'll be better prepared to actually cut the real pipe that we're going to install for our lab project.